Hi, I'm Eric Kimball, and today in this video I'm going to introduce you to the concept, the idea of letter carving in wood using nothing more than a common utility knife, like you see right here. It was 35 years ago that I first started using nothing more than a utility knife to carve letters in wood. And I know it was 35 years ago because at that time my nephew was born, and I made him a stool, a child's stool like this, as a gift. And I carved his name in it. And 35 years later, he still has that stool. This stool I made for my first grandson, Jackson, 8 years ago. I've made a number of these stools as gifts over the years, and I'm making 4 of them now because I've got 4 more grandchildren. So this is a good opportunity for me to show you this idea, this way of carving. Now this is a top for one of my grandchildren. I'll show you this close up, and I'm going to show you how I do this. All right, let me just show you here a little closer up look at this carving that I've made with the utility knife. And I have not sanded the top. There's a little bit of the outline that I made around the lettering, but that gives you an idea. These are incised letters. You got nice shadow lines there, all with a utility knife. Not a problem. I'm going to show you how it's done. In order to get your letters for carving onto the wood, you need to create I'll call it a pattern. This is tracing paper, but first you need your font, and this is Times New Roman font. On my word processor, I found this. I blew it up to 210 points. That's about 2 inches high. That is an ideal size for carving with a utility knife, 2 inches. So I took my tracing paper, I drew a line on it. I'll turn this around so it's right side for you. Put a line on the tracing paper, lined up my letters, and traced them. Got the spacing so it looked good by eye of each of the letters. Traced them onto here. Then I get rid of that, drew a line on here on the wood, and I got this adjusted where I wanted it, used masking tape to hold it down, and then, very simple, I used some carbon paper. Now I have what I'm going to be demonstrating for you here. This is another grandchild, and I've traced over these lines using carbon paper, and this is my outline that I'm going to use for carving. Okay, before I get into the carving, I want to talk about tools briefly. Any utility knife will work for carving like I'm going to show you here. This is a vintage 10499. I love this knife, but it's not ideal for carving. I've used it for letter carving. It'll work, but it has some drawbacks. This Stanley number 199, it says, is perfect for carving with a utility knife. This is an old style, but it's a new knife. And it has a fixed blade, doesn't jiggle around. This one jiggles around. But more importantly, it is smaller, it's shorter, you can see that. It is more rounded here, around the perimeter. This is squarish. Being more rounded is more comfortable, and it tapers a bit from being wider here and down here. Just a little, but it's enough. It all adds up to comfort and better control, okay? So, like I said, any utility knife is going to work for you, but this one, in my experience, works best. As far as blades go, any utility knife blade is going to work for you as long as it's sharp, okay? But these Lenox Gold Titanium Edge utility blades are remarkably better. You pay more for these, and you pay more for a reason. They are better. They're sharp, they stay sharp. This is the blade if you want maximum satisfaction when it comes to carving with a utility knife, this is the blade you want. Now I'm pretty sure you can get these blades and this style of knife at Lowe's or Home Depot. If not, I've got a affiliate link down below. What I'm showing you here is essentially chip carving with a utility knife. And if you're familiar with chip carving, you know that there's a special chip carving knife that is typically used. And I'm not suggesting that this is as good or better than a chip carving knife, not at all. What I'm saying here, what I'm going to demonstrate here, is that you can do a decent job with this kind of lettering, with this size of lettering, with nothing more than a utility knife like this. And the beautiful thing about this is, if it gets dull, you can just change the blade. With a chip carving knife, you gotta sharpen it. To get started, this is a good way, I think, to go. Now, the other difference between this and chip carving is that generally when someone's chip carving, they are holding the wood or manipulating the wood, turning it around and carving with one hand, okay? And that's not what I'm going to be doing. I'm clamping this securely in my Black & Decker Workmate, and instead of moving the wood around, I'm going to move around the wood, okay? And instead of using one hand, I'm going to use, quite often, not always, I'm going to use two hands to get the cuts that I want. And you'll see that. Ready? Yep. I hope this video and that little demonstration has inspired you to try your hand at letter carving in wood using nothing more than a basic utility knife like this. Granted, this is an amateur technique to letter carving in wood, but if you take your time, you can do a pretty respectable job. You can do a job that will impress you, if you've never done this before, to begin with, and it will impress your friends and family. Anyone who sees this is going to be impressed by what you've done with nothing more than a basic utility knife like this. Now, I want to thank my youngest son, James, Easton's daddy, for helping me film those close-up shots where I was carving the letters. But after James left and I was watching the videos, I realized there was no picture showing the overall grip that I was using to make the cuts. So I've just shot a little bit of a film showing you in detail how I'm holding the knife. I think this is important. If you've watched this far, I think you'll want to see this also. In the video that you just watched, I was not going around the workpiece. I, for filming purposes, stayed in one spot, and I was able to make all the cuts without really moving the camera much. And I held the knife in different ways, but the basic way that I hold the knife for most of the cuts, the preferable way, is what you see right here. I'm holding it here, I've got my thumb here for stability, I put my knuckle down for stability, and I'm drawing the blade along. This is essentially how a chip carving knife is used. But I'm also adding quite often some stability, more stability and control by putting my index finger on my other hand against my thumb and then against the blade here. So I'll show you here. Just see, my thumb is down, this thumb here, and my knuckle's up a little bit, but I've got this stability here with this finger. I'm not making one long sweep, I'm just coming along with controlled shortcuts like that. All right, so that's the basic grip that I'm using. And you can do what works for you, but give that a try and see if that gives you the comfort and stability that you need. I would typically, I didn't do it in this video, but I would walk around to this other side and use the same position to make the cuts. But I found that for video purposes, I was able to put my, I've got the thumb down here again, and I'm putting my finger under here for stability, and I'm bringing it along. Okay? So do what works for you, bottom line. But that gives you an idea of what I was doing here to make these cuts in this video.